woman found a strange object on the shore, but it brought big trouble to her life. Sophie was walking along the shore when she noticed something strange, a large metallic object half buried in the sand. It was rusted with thick cables hanging from its sides, but something about it felt different. She wiped away some of the sand and realized it wasn't from any shipwreck. It was too advanced, too smooth, too unnatural. Her curiosity took over. Struggling with its weight, she lifted the object into the back of her car and drove home. She placed it in her storage room, thinking she'd examine it later, but work called, and she had to leave. That evening when she returned, something was different. A dim red light blinked from the object, making strange shapes on the walls. This wasn't just some old piece of metal. Panicked, she called her best friend Alex, a mechanic who specialized in machinery. Alex arrived within minutes, eyes widening when he saw the object. He ran his hands over its surface, inspecting every detail. Then he found something, a small hidden switch. When Alex pressed it, something shocking happened. Sophie stood frozen in her small storage room, her pulse hammering against her chest. The humming from the object grew sharper, echoing off the walls until the sound felt like it was inside her head. The red glow deepened, spreading across the surface in veins of light that looked alive, almost like blood vessels under skin. Alex's hand trembled as it hovered over the switch he had just pressed, his eyes wide with disbelief. Neither of them spoke for several seconds, too shocked by what they were seeing. Then, with a hiss that made Sophie flinch, a section of the object shifted. A panel slid back, revealing a pulsing cluster of circuits that flickered with an eerie blue light. "This isn't right," Alex whispered, his voice low as if the object could hear him. "This isn't human tech. It can't be." Before Sophie could respond, the vibration under her feet grew heavier, rattling the shelves in the room. She backed toward the doorway, her breath shallow, but her eyes remained locked on the strange device. It felt like it was breathing, alive in a way metal had no business being. She reached for her phone to call the police, but before she could unlock it, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from outside. A sharp knock thundered on the door, making her drop the phone to the floor. Alex whipped his head toward the entrance, his face pale. The knock came again, harder this time, shaking the thin wooden frame of the door. Sophie edged closer, her hands shaking as she pulled the handle. She cracked it open just enough to see who was there, and her blood ran cold. 3 men stood in the corridor, dressed in black suits with crisp ties, their eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses despite the late hour. Their faces were blank, unreadable, like carved stone. The man at the front leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "We need to come inside," he said, no trace of hesitation in his tone. Sophie froze, her mouth opening but no words coming out. Alex stepped beside her, his jaw tight. "Who are you?" he demanded. The man didn't answer. He simply pushed the door wider and stepped past Sophie as though her permission didn't matter. His colleagues followed in silence, their footsteps deliberate, heavy, and unhurried. They moved straight toward the object, their attention fixed solely on it. Sophie's heart pounded harder with every step they took. One of the men pulled a small black device from his pocket, no bigger than a remote control. He aimed it at the glowing machine. A soft beep filled the room. He nodded once and turned to the others. "This is it," he said flatly. Sophie's stomach twisted. They knew exactly what this thing was, and that terrified her more than anything. Alex stepped forward, trying to block them. "What is it?" he asked, his voice louder now. "What are you doing with it?" The leader finally turned his head toward them. His expression never changed, but his words carried weight. "This object is classified," he said. "It should never have been removed from its location. You were never meant to see it. Has anyone else been told about it?" Sophie shook her head quickly. "No," she said, almost pleading. "It was just us. I didn't tell anyone." Alex clenched his fists. "You still haven't answered me. What is it?" The man ignored the question. Instead, he gestured to his partner, who pulled a compact black case from his jacket. He opened it, revealing a set of instruments that looked nothing like any tools Sophie had seen. With a single press of a button, the object's glow flickered, then dimmed. The hum cut off instantly, leaving the room in sudden silence that felt even heavier than the noise. Sophie and Alex stood frozen as the men bent down and, with surprising ease, lifted the heavy object between them. They carried it out through the narrow doorway, their movements smooth and practiced, as though this was far from the first time they had done something like this. Sophie rushed to the doorway, her voice cracking. "Wait, you can't just take it." The leader paused only long enough to turn back to her. His eyes, hidden behind those glasses, seemed to bore into her all the same. "Forget what you saw," he said coldly. "For your own safety, forget everything." Then he turned, and within moments the men had disappeared down the corridor. Through the window, Sophie caught sight of a large black van parked on the street. The men loaded the object inside, secured the doors, and without a single look back, the van's engine roared to life. It sped off into the night, leaving behind only silence and the faint echo of tires fading down the road. Sophie's knees gave out, and she sank onto the cold floor. Her body trembled as her mind tried to process what had just happened. Alex crouched beside her, his face set in a grim frown. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Finally, Alex broke the silence. "You understand what this means, right? That thing, it was never meant to be here. Someone somewhere is covering it up, and now we're part of it." Sophie shook her head, her voice a whisper. "We didn't ask for this. We should have just left it there." Alex's eyes darkened. "It's too late for that." The following days were a blur. Sophie couldn't focus at work. Every time she tried to push it from her mind, she saw that red glow in the corner of her vision. She felt watched, even when she was alone. Twice she thought she noticed a black car parked near her flat, its tinted windows impossible to see through. When she approached it, the car drove away without hesitation. Alex was no better. He spent hours researching late into the night, his computer screen filled with old conspiracy forums, blurred photographs, and reports about unidentified objects washed up on shores across the world. He grew more convinced by the day that what they had seen was not just advanced technology, but something not of this world. Then on the third night, Sophie woke with a start. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She picked it up and froze. An unknown number had sent her a single message. "Stop asking questions. This is your only warning." Her hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped the phone. She immediately called Alex, her voice trembling as she told him about the message. He was silent for a long time before finally answering. "They're watching us," he said quietly. "If they can get into your phone, they can get into anything. We have to be careful." But Sophie wasn't sure careful would be enough, because that same night, as she lay awake staring at the ceiling, she swore she heard the faintest hum returning. Not outside, not in the corridor, but from the far end of her storage room, exactly where the object had once sat.